What is up, Pacer Nation? Welcome to the Pacer Pulse podcast, the heartbeat of Indiana basketball.
Welcome, welcome.
And today I wanted to do kind of a different style of podcast where I want to incorporate this in to like my scheduling of podcasts that I do. Let's say in between games, game recaps, trade talk and all that. But I want to go into a little bit of storytelling about the players, as long as I can find information on them, as much as I can find. But I thought it would be cool to kinda hear some of the backstory of the players and kinda like their early life, where they came from, how they grew up a little bit, how they got to be where they are today with the team, and I think that's something that's always been interesting to me, is hearing kind of the backstories, and it just shows how you can really connect and relate to the players too, and it kinda just makes you wanna get behind them even more after you hear their stories, and this first guy that I wanted to talk about, at least the information I was able to find on, was Benedict Mathurin. So has a very interesting story coming into the league, and I think he's a player that you really realize why he plays the way he plays after hearing some of his story a little bit, and it really does help paint a picture, as to why he has so much passion and fire and has so much intensity for the way he plays. And I just think it's so cool learning about these guys in that sort of way and being able to connect to them on more of like a human level instead of just what we see on the screen and like during games and whatnot. And, it just puts them in more of a human light instead of just like, oh, like they're playing this way or they're playing that way. Like, nah, these are people too who have gone through real life experiences, just like you and me. We all experience these things in life or different things, or some people more so than others, but we all experience this existence as humans. And his story I wanted to dive into just a little bit, as I was able to find a little bit on him. But like last year, I think it was during the finals run, USA Today did a little article on him, and it was like most of what Matherin's backstory I could find. And so I'll just start off here. It says, "Where is Benedict Mathurin from?" So Mathurin, he was born on June 19th, 2002, in Montreal, Quebec. And basketball, it runs in his family. His older sister, Jennifer, played college basketball at North Carolina State for from 2013 to 17. And his brother, Dominique Jeune, I'm probably going to butcher his last name. Jeune, it's like Jeune is how you spell it. So I don't know how you pronounce it exactly, but his brother, Dominique Jeune, had dreams of playing in the NBA. But then when they were younger, tragedy struck the Mathurin family when his 15-year-old brother, Dominique, got struck by a car and was killed when he was riding his bike home from school. And Mathurin, he was 12 at the time of his brother's death. And they got a quote from Mathurin back in 2022, and where Mathurin said, "My brother, he's my inspiration. He wanted to play in the NBA. It was a mission for me and him as well." So you can already see where, like I was talking about earlier, why Mathurin plays with so much intensity and fire in his game, and you could tell he's driven by something outside of just wanting his own, personal accolades or goals. You could tell that he is driven by so much more than that, and I think, what happened to his brother, which I don't know how many of us could deal with that, and, like, knowing that, like, my brothers have been, my best friends growing up, some of my best friends now, and it's like, knowing that my brother would die, like, when I'm 12 years old, I couldn't imagine. I couldn't imagine going through something like that, and the fact that he was able to use that as, like, motivation to really help drive him and push him to be the best that he can be. You can see where a lot of that comes from, and it's just cool to hear, like, see that, like, some of his backstory so you can get to, like, really connect with Mathurin more on that sort of level. But but then it says in 2018, Mathurin, he left home at age 15, so a few years after his brother died, to enter the NBA Academy Latin America in Mexico City, which is a year round elite basketball development program for top high school age players. So imagine, your brother dying when you're age 12. 3 years later, you go off on your own, essentially, at age 15, which is super young, and go and play in this league, hoping to, make college and an NBA eventually. But so from 15 on to college, he was in this Latin American Mexico City League. And after that, of course, we know that he went to the University of Arizona. He played 2 seasons of collegiate basketball there. He was named to the Pac-12 All Freshman team in 2021 after averaging 10 points, 10.8 points, 4.8 rebounds, 1.2 assists, and 26 games. And he started 12 of those. So already shows this potential that he already had, made the all freshman team. And then he was promoted to the starting lineup for his sophomore campaign, and he averaged 17.7 points a game, 5.6 rebounds, and 2.5 assists in 37 games. And he started all those games. And he was named a second team All American, and he picked up Pac 12 Player of the Year and first team All Pac 12 honors that year. And then, as we know, he went into the draft, and we selected him sixth overall. And as we know, if you've been watching the team, maybe if you're new to the team, he averaged 16.7 points per game his rookie year, 4 rebounds, 1.5 assists in 78 games, 17 starts. And he was named to the 2023 NBA All Rookie First Team. And he finished fourth in Rookie of the Year voting and set a Pacers franchise record for most threes made by a rookie, 100 or 100 plus. And this was a quote by Rick Carlisle back in 2022 during Mathurin's rookie year. And he was saying how every once in a while there is a young player that comes out of college whose game is much more suited to the NBA than college. And I think Ben might be one of those guys. He had a great year coaching in college. He had a great he had a great coaching in college. Yeah, sorry. He had great coaching in college. Sorry, I butchered that. But he was player of the year in the Pac-12, but it is unique for a guy at this stage to have that feel to his game. So pretty high praise from Rick Carlisle, coming into Mathurin's, rookie season. So you clearly see why they thought so highly of him, uh, given his background and seeing that he was able to really just overcome a lot of different things. And I think that's what they saw in his character too. And as we all see, and we've had people say he's got like that Kobe mentality sort of thing, and you can really see it obviously in his play, but knowing what kind of drives him behind that, you can see why even more so he has that, sort of chip on his shoulder and like he's out to prove everyone in the world that he's an elite basketball player. And other information I've found, he was born, like I said, June 19th, 2002, to his late father, Felix Mathurin, and his mother, LV June. And then tragically, his father, Felix, passed away in 2013. But Mathurin never had a good relationship with his father. But, even when you don't have a good relationship, I'd imagine it still affects you in some way because I'd imagine you don't have a good relationship, but as a son or even as a daughter, per se, you always wish at some point that you could have a good relationship with your father, And I could see maybe if it didn't affect him or not, it's still another tragic death that he had to deal with, especially after his brother, when he was 12 and now father passing away. But apparently his mother, Elvie, worked long hours as a nurse to support her children who grew up in the Montreal suburb of Montreal Nord. She always supported Benedict to achieve his basketball dreams. In 2022, Elvie was among the 15,000 in attendance at Cambridge Fieldhouse to watch Benedict's NBA debut match. And you can only imagine how it would be as a mom seeing your son persevere after a lot of these different things that have gone on in his life and what they've all experienced as a family. And I'm sure it had to be a surreal moment. You could only imagine. And as I said, his brother suffered that significant head injury when he was riding home on his bicycle and died the next day after that at age 15. And it's just so tragic to hear. And then on the other hand, His sister pursued her master's degree at North Carolina State and played college basketball there for 4 years. So, they've had basketball and they were an athletic family. You know, it's all in like kind of their genes, you would say. So, it's not surprising that he's gotten to where he is. And obviously, we already know Matherin's already a super athletic guy. He's got like a 40-inch vertical. And you can easily see that now, actually, after seeing like how his family has all been pretty much athletes. And then Benedict Mathurin, he played for Canada at the 2021 FIBA Under-19 World Cup. And he also, in 2018, he joined the NBA Latin American in Mexico City, becoming its first Canadian-born player. And like I was saying earlier, he went to there when he was like 15 or so 15 to 2018, or not to 2018, to however long till he played in college. But he committed to playing to Arizona over Baylor, and just some other things that I found. And then some family-oriented stuff in Matherin's life. He is very close to his family. He often credits his family support for his success and remains grounded despite his rising fame. So that makes a lot of sense, obviously, because a lot of those tragic events, it tends to either pull families closer or apart, and then it pulled his family together even more. And you can see that his mother tried very hard to help Matherin get to where he wants to be, and probably his sister too. But it's just pretty awesome to see, and it helps paint a different kind of picture of Matherin where you don't really see that side, of course, and you just see this fiery guy in the court, but where you see that more human side of him where he is close to his family. He's just like any of us. But it's interesting to see. And then he also has a passion for music, I guess. Like in his free time, he enjoys playing the piano, and the passion for music provides a creative outlet and helps him relax. And then he's very active in a community service. He participates in various charitable activities, giving back to the community that supports him. So that's just a lot of different information I found on Matherin that I thought was pretty enticing, like, just interesting. And I was hoping I could find more, but that's the most I could find. So that'd be cool if one day he did kind of like a sit down interview somewhere, or I mean, I would even do it if he ever wanted. But I know I'm not there quite yet, but it would be cool to see, or just to sit down and talk to him about any of that, what's drove him throughout his life outside of those sort of things that I just mentioned here today. But yeah, it would be cool to hear. Like, it's always interesting to me hearing people's backstories, especially players and whatnot. And like I said, I want to do more of these, even if they're like smaller, like shorter little podcasts. It's just, I think it helps fans seeing these players in a different light instead of just like I said, oh, they're being, they're shooting terrible today, or they don't fit the team, or this or that. Just seeing them as more as like human beings. So I thought it was really cool. It was interesting to dive in to like find those certain things, and just to kind of dive into seeing what kind of people they are, what's shaped them into who they are today. And like I said, I would like to do like a little mini series like this, even if they're not long episodes, and just kind of go over some of these players' lives and how, like, what's gotten them to where they are today with the team. And I think it can help us kind of galvanize and get behind the team even more, because we don't just see them as like, people above society sometimes, as you can see, like people in the NBA are like, you view them in a different lens in a sense, or it's easy to, I think we all have done that before. And it just kind of helps us stay connected and realize, hey, we're all human beings at the end of the day. And, we all go through our own tragic things in life. We have our own certain ways of processing them, but I think it helps us connect to the players even more hearing these sort of stories. And I hope I can find more stories on some other guys too. I want to do, if I can do it on every player of the team, I will do it. If I can find the information. It's just if it's out there. And if not, I would love to interview any of them if I could in the future and just talk to them about what has drove them to get to where they are today. I just think it's an interesting recall. It helps us connect to them more as fans, and especially how magical that run was last year, and just how much like the community got behind this team. I think it helps us seeing that side of them even more. But I just wanted to introduce you guys to that and just kind of bring that to people's attention. And, in case of nobody knew that about Matherin, I didn't know all those things about Matherin. So it was very interesting to see. Oh, and sorry, this isn't something I read recently, but I remember hearing this a while back. Uh, I guess when Matherin did, whenever he went to Mexico City to join that league before he went to college, I think he was always playing as like a power forward until he got to college. Because you can kind of see some of that aspect in his game because he's a very strong rebounder and whatnot. But I don't think he started playing out on the perimeter until he made it to college. And I always thought that was huge. And think it kind of shows that his development, the way he's already developed already, is extraordinarily good, considering how good he is with the ball already. And obviously, he can tighten his handle even more. But how well he's able to play off the dribble already and get to the line, how he can shoot and score from all 3 levels. It's just kinda crazy to see that he's taken that big of a leap already, and he's only been playing out on the perimeter for, 3 or 4 years, 4 or 5, however long it's been. But as someone that's played basketball before, it's not that easy to, like, transition from being an inside player to an outside player where you're switching positions entirely, you know? Stuff you never had to do growing up, like dribble the ball, creating your own shot off the dribble, passing for others. I think it kinda helps explain why maybe people think his passing isn't as great, but it's definitely something he's improved on. But it kinda helps you see like, oh, well, you could see where there's definitely more levels he's gonna grow, especially if that is true, if that's the case that he hasn't been playing like a guard or forward position for that long. He has such a high ceiling still, and he's only 23. I don't know if he turns 24 this year. It was in June, right, his birthday? So, yeah, it would be the end of this year. So he'll be 23 essentially this entire year. So still extremely young, and if he's still got even more levels to go and he's already made such huge strides this year so far, even though it's early, I mean, the sky's the limit for this guy. I hope we bring him back because he's just a guy you want on your team, man. Like, just the potential he has and just the background that he has, I think, is just something that it creates something in you that you just can't teach to some guys. Having that compassion, that fire, that drive to want to be the best, and it's not just driven by your own selfish, accolades or whatever you wanna call it. Maybe not selfish, but your own personal drive, but also driven by, wanting to do it for his brother or for his family. Different things like that, that he's also motivated by, so there's other outside factors that are gonna always push him to be the best he can be. So I think that's maybe he can become a leader of this team one day and kinda help, asides from, Tyrese and Pascal, that he can kinda lead by example too, and I hope guys can, like, see his work ethic and how infectious that can be and seeing like, "Oh, this guy's working so hard, I better improve my game, I better work hard at my game." Even if he's not the most vocal, I think that makes a huge impact on guys too because you see one guy working hard, you're gonna make sure you're doing the same because you don't wanna let your team down. You wanna get better and better. It almost creates that competitive spark in each other too. You're like, "Oh, like, I need to make sure I'm working just as hard as this guy is," if I wanna become the best player I can be. So it's just I thought that was really interesting too, interesting little wrinkle where I don't know if a lot of fans know that, and hopefully it gives them a little grace too to realize, "Hey, like, this guy's improved dramatically on that front if he's had to switch positions entirely once he got to college." I mean, that's like I said, he played 2 years in college, he's in his 4th year now or so, so, like, 5 to 6 years. So, I mean, I know that's a long time, but still, when guys have been playing certain positions their whole life, it's still a big transition. And that's where, like, I don't know how much basketball he played back in, like, high school, and whatnot, and all that, so I wonder if he has as much wear and tear on his body, kinda like a Pascal situation, where he didn't have that as much. And that's why we're kinda seeing Pascal still be able to play at the high level he's still able to play because he didn't have as much wear and tear on his body, even though we obviously don't want to create more of that, but I wonder if Matherin's kind of the same way. And definitely skill-wise, you can see where he still has more levels he could even go. He's nowhere near a finished product, and he's already shown a lot of that skill this year, and I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I hope I can bring more of these out where we can learn more about these guys. And really, I know it's been a rough season, so I think this kind of helps bring a little more light onto some of these players and reminds us of like, hey, like there's a reason why we get behind these guys the way we do, why we believe in them the way we do, and why we were able to make it as far as we did last year because these guys have all their personal stories, I'm sure, that drive them in the same way that Mathurin does, you know? And I can't wait to see and like hopefully find all these. And it just kind of helps you feel even more connected, even after last year's run, to make you even want to like cheer more for these guys. But that's it for today's episode. I am going to do a game recap tonight of the Detroit Pistons game, and hopefully we can bounce back from that. I'm sure Kay Cunningham is going to play because he's been back the last few games now, unless they decide to rest him because they think, you know, how it is in the NBA. But should be a tough one, but the way Nimhard, Mathurin, and Siakam played last game, that was very encouraging to see. Nimhard, too, especially with a career high, was awesome to see. And Mathurin and Siakam, of course, providing the same things they always do. Let's just hope we can get a lot more impact off our bench with Jarris Walker, and maybe Shepard can start knocking down some threes. His defense has been very good lately. TJ's been coming on lately. Jay Huff, let's hope he can start hitting some threes because I've been liking his rim defense here lately. I think they said he's leading the NBA in blocks per minute or something like that, so even better than Wembanyama, which is pretty crazy to think about. But he's playing a lot less too, so I don't know how that stat necessarily translates, but pretty encouraging to see. Let's just hope, we can right this ship. We were so close in that Cavs game. I think we can maybe sneak a win tonight and catch Detroit off guard, but we'll see. But I just want to thank you guys for listening today, and I will talk to you soon.